I'm a wanderer, swallowed everything that is all except a hickory tree. Now the people back
Welcome
home
back to
watch-
Bluegrass Stories number 4. In this episode, I'm catching up again with an old friend from East Tennessee State University. She's a singer-songwriter. She's got an album out you can listen to on Spotify, other original music. Jamie Collins, you're from Bristol, Virginia, right? Am I right about that?
Tennessee.
All right.
Well, I definitely claim both Tennessee and Virginia. But I grew up in Bristol, Tennessee. Went
Okay.
to primary school and high school in Bristol, Tennessee. But yeah.
Okay, so we met. It's crazy. Like the years, it's about been 15 to 16 years, I'd say, since we met, which is wild,
Yes,
which is
I
insane.
know.
And
Yes.
we left off. We haven't really spoken much in that time, for the most part, here and there. But tell me to begin with, like where did you start, or when did you start playing music before we met at ETSU? Did it go back to your childhood, or was it kind of deep in your family
Yeah.
roots? But tell us about that.
Yeah. So I grew up in a musical family. My dad was a flat picking guitar player, fiddle player. And so I grew up going to a lot of fiddlers conventions, and a lot of the musical traditions came from his side of the family. My grandmother was a piano player, and she liked to sing. And so, yeah, we would, spend a lot of time together as a family playing music. My brother plays the mandolin and
Mhm.
guitar. And so, growing up, I decided that, I wanted to try to start singing. I was pretty shy about it, whenever I was young. We were never made to play or anything, but
Mhm.
we were encouraged to play if we wanted to. And so when I was, probably around 9 or 10, I was like, oh, well, I will sing at the Fiddlers Convention this year on the stage. And so doing sort of those, sort of type of things, family activities, music just grew organically, I think, for me. And it's always just been something that I have regarded as very sacred and special in my life. And I love to write, I love to travel, I love to meet people and hear stories. So, music and happiness go hand in hand for me.
So that's great to hear. So tell me, what made you decide to go to ETSU? It was a regional school. It was obviously the pick there because it's close by. But I'm interested, like, were your parents full supportive of going into the Bluegrass program, and how did that decision come about? And then we'll get into your time at ETSU.
Absolutely. At the time, whenever I was getting ready to go to college, the Bluegrass program was still fairly new. I mean, it had been running for well over 10 years, but still fairly small, I would say.
Mhm.
And now it's just so amazing, how many students have come through the program. Amazing, amazing program. Let me just start there. But yeah, my parents were totally supportive of it. I think they knew that I was going to continue to grow as a musician, probably just because, I grew up around it and loved it so much.
Uh-huh.
Such a big part of life. But it was my minor. So I am an educator, and I studied education at ETSU as my major, and I minored in the Bluegrass program. So it was really a perfect fit for me as far as making friends. And, so many of my friends that I played music with at ETSU, we're still friends today. And we've got a lot of good memories that we can kind of look back on and,
Oh
and
yeah.
laugh about and enjoy together. And yeah, it's definitely a huge part of my growth as a musician was attending school with my peers, collaborating with people, and learning from some amazing instructors.
Yeah, we were really lucky. We were really lucky
Yes.
to have that experience. I'm not sure if I knew at the time going through the program how much it would impact me as an adult.
Mhm.
But I guess that's one of the reasons why we're on this Zoom chat right now, or this podcast
Totally.
rather. We're not on Zoom. Who does that? But yeah, that's great. So
We're on a
um,
podcast.
yeah. So tell me anything else you want to mention about ETSU specifically. Was there like a special moment or some of those performances that we did towards the end of the semesters that really like stick in your memory more than others?
Absolutely. I want to make mention of Raymond McLean, who
Hmm.
was the director at the time whenever I started at ETSU, and Dan Boner apprenticed with Raymond for years. And both of them, as instructors and as people, had a huge influence on me as an artist. And they're just wonderful folks and amazing musicians.
Hmm.
So yeah, thank you guys so much for your leadership and just really pouring themselves into their students and the future of the music.
Right.
And I think that that's something that really stuck with me. I felt like all of the instructors there truly care about the future of bluegrass music, which, as we know, is skyrocketing. Especially compared to, I think, when we were little, and most folks probably didn't know what bluegrass was.
Yeah.
But after that movie that was called "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou," a lot
Yeah.
more people started listening to folks like Jerry Douglas, Dan Tominski,
Hmm.
and then we have amazing instructors through the program, like Wyatt Rice and Tim Stafford and Adam Steffi used to
Yeah.
teach there, Hunter Berry,
Barry
and
Bells. I took
all
bass with Barry Bells.
Barry Bells,
Yep.
all of these amazing musicians that have had such an influence on this wonderful genre of music that we're a part of.
Yeah, and it's really cool to see it becoming more popular. That's something that's really interesting. I remember I went back to for grad school years later, and one of my grad school professors, I remember he took a stab at the bluegrass program. He didn't know that I'd attended it or anything. Basically, kind of making a joke about who would ever do that and where would it ever get you. And I always like to think back that like that's I'm gonna kind of challenge that notion. But
Right.
anyway,
Yeah.
let's I want to talk about your original music first. Actually,
Okay.
let's talk about that before we talk about Ireland, because I imagine it may have had something to do with getting there, perhaps. But I've listened to your record, the full
Oh,
length album, 13 songs on it.
yes.
And I want to
Yes.
ask you first about.
Thanks for knowing that little detail there.
Oh,
That's
no
cool.
worries. I've been listening to it, but
Thanks,
I'm
babe.
always interested because, I make little tutorials on the internet, and they're like 10 seconds of playing guitar, and sometimes those are the most difficult things to do when I sit down to do them. Um,
Yeah.
how was the process? Start from like coming up with the songs that you chose and sort of going into the studio. It can't be easy, and I've only done it a handful of times with a couple demos here and there. But tell us
Right.
about that experience.
So it's been 6 years ago that I moved to the Carroll County area, which is where I recorded the majority of the album. The first couple tracks were recorded at some of my best friends. They now have like a full-fledged studio, but they had like a basement studio in their house. And so I grew up with them, and we actually used to sing in like a rock garage band when we were in high school.
Hmm.
But Matt and Faisal Smile, who Matt now owns Audio Oasis in Bristol. But anyway, so I was over at their house one day, and they had been recording some, and of course I played like this whole other genre of music, but I had written some songs, and I told Matt one day, I was like, I'm thinking I might want to try to start recording some. And so I recorded the first two there just as some tracks. And my friend Nate Leith at the time was with me actually and was able to lay down some fiddle at that time. And I carried those tracks for a couple years actually. I just had them. I didn't do anything with them. I
Hmm.
just had them.
Yeah.
And then whenever I moved up to the Carroll County area, and I was working as an elementary music teacher, and I was starting to make some actual money, a
Yeah.
steady paycheck,
Hmm.
and was able to have some income to then be able to create an outlet for my creative energy. And so I reached out to some folks that I knew had a studio. Josh Pickett, who played in No Speed Limit for years and
Hmm.
has been a huge influencer in as far as being a teacher for guitar in the Southwest Virginia area. I reached out to him because I knew that Josh has an amazing ear. And I knew he had, a studio and had done some albums. And he knew me. I mean, he knew my dad, and I felt like he would know my style.
Mm-hmm.
And so um it was very comfortable as far as, the studio, because it's, pretty homegrown feeling there. It was out in the middle of nowhere,
Mm-hmm.
which is, pretty familiar ground, I feel like, for me. I always feel really connected spiritually whenever I can just be out in nature. And that's when I feel most creative.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, and so I just started working at it a little bit at a time. I was playing music heavily with some folks from like the Piedmont Triad area in North Carolina. And so they played on some tracks like the Eversoul Brothers, my Blue Ridge Girls, Martha Spencer, and Brett Morris. They're on the album as well.
Yeah.
And lots of other friends, that I just am so, so proud to have these experiences with and get to play music with. And so then, as I got a few more songs recorded, and was learning too, and I think still that recording is a whole nother art form,
Yeah.
even compared to performing or
Right.
writing. So it's very different. But I'm getting there. I'm feeling more confident, more comfortable as time
Absolutely.
goes on.
It's so hard.
Um,
It's yeah, not easy to
it's
do.
a different thing for
Yeah.
sure. And so I'm, again, so thankful to that I did decide to make an album because I learned so much.
There's I wanted to ask you because I would say that the majority of the songs on the album kind of fits into what I would call traditional sort of bluegrass, but there's one that kind of stuck out to me that doesn't. But can you
Okay.
tell us about Smoke Rises? Because that one has a
Sure.
different feel to it. And it kind of like sends the listener to like a different place. Tell us about that song on the album.
That song in particular, I feel like, yes, I feel very similar about. So when I wrote the song, I wrote it because I was driving through some wildfires.
Okay.
And I didn't have like any other music with me. I was in a car that only had a CD player, and I only had one CD at the time. None of the radio stations were really working. I was way out in Colorado, so I was out in a different kind of place.
Yeah.
And I was pretty nervous, as far as like, I don't know, I probably was on some roads I probably shouldn't have been on, which can be a metaphor for life as well, I think sometimes. But yeah, and so I was kind of driving through these fires, and I was sort of praying, but like started just like singing the song, and that's where it came from.
Very
And
cool.
so that's one that I don't know that I've really, I mean, I make up songs all the time, but I don't know that I've really ever had one come into fruition, um, that was, that I really completed in that way, which was cool, which was just like I just started singing it. And then later on, I sat down with the guitar and organized it more. But
Yeah.
yeah, that one came from a different place, I do believe.
Yeah. Okay, so now let's talk about Ireland.
Okay.
I have lived overseas for a long time. There's one nationality that I gravitate towards with people that I befriend, people that I hang out with, and that's Irish people.
Oh,
I
yes.
tell people that like I think that Irish people and people from Appalachia perhaps have more in common than
Yes.
maybe even like Californians and like people from Appalachia. Um, how was that experience? Because you just literally came back from Ireland. How long were you over there for? Tell us about everything from
Oh
the
my gosh,
music, from the
man.
tour to the people, which I'm sure there's a lot to speak about here.
There's so I've been reflecting on it all day, just knowing that these questions were coming. So I kind of like went back through some of my pictures and just, I'm still on cloud nine from getting to go. It was an amazing trip, and huge thank you to my friends, who help make that happen. So my best one of my best friends, my Blue Ridge Girl sister, Martha Spencer, has a new album out called
Hmm.
Out in La La Land. And so the tour was really to promote this new album that she has. And so
Okay.
I've been playing bass in that outfit for a few years now, and so we've traveled the US a couple different times.
Yeah.
So they're just, they're a whole lot of fun to travel with. We travel really well together. But anyways, we started in Westport. I left out of Nashville on June 5th,
Mm-hmm.
and then we flew back to Nashville on my birthday, June 16th. So we were
Okay.
gone for 11 days.
Yep.
And we started out at the Westport Folk Festival. Amazing, amazing town, so much fun. And it being a festival, I mean, lots of other bands played. Dirk and Amelia Powell were there. Just so many. Rihanna Giddens was there. So many great musicians, and so it was super fun. Like
Mm-hmm.
jamming in the lobby at night. ETSU's band was there. Pythagoras. So just a super fun experience. Big thanks to Yuri and Westport Bluegrass and Folk Festival for having us there as Martha Spencer and the Wonderland Country Band. From Westport, we traveled to Donegal, and I was saying Donegal, and then everybody's like, no,
No.
it's Donegal.
Yeah.
We traveled there and just played at one of the sweetest little pubs, that I could picture in my mind. It was very picturesque.
Mm-hmm.
Called the Beehive in Ardara, and traveled to some amazing cliffs out that way. I mean, that was really.
The Cliffs of Moher.
So we were at Sleeves Lee's.
Oh, okay. My
Yes,
Irish geography's not polished.
that's okay. Mine is not either. And I actually have written these down because I didn't want to leave anything out because it was all so magical and amazing.
Yep.
And so big thanks to Pat for having us there. There was a great singer-songwriter from that town that came out that night too, Sean, and he shared some songs. Beautiful, beautiful voice. There was a mandolin player that came out the second night because it was just sort of like a jam.
Mm-hmm.
And we played some stuff like Billy and the Low Ground, Boston Boy, some really good tunes. So that
Can
was a lot
you
of fun.
sorry to interrupt. Can you mention tell the audience I'm interested in this as well. Was there any noticeable difference between American audiences and Irish audiences and how different were they?
You know, Thankfully, I feel like folks who really support our style of music for the most part, especially at festivals or like, I don't know, I just feel like it's an unspoken rule that you listen to the music. So we had really good listening crowds, for the most part. And, of course, we played some bars, we played some loud places, but I really genuinely feel like people wanted to listen. So we had some great crowds. As far as the difference, the only big difference that I could say is that most people, which is a great thing, when they would come up to us afterwards, they'd say, "Brilliant, brilliant."
Oh,
So that's a
brilliant.
big phrase over there. And then class. Like if something's cool
Yeah.
or it's awesome, they'll say, "Oh, class."
Yeah,
That's
class.
class.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So that's the only real big difference. But everybody was so nice and very receptive to the music. And yeah, we had some great audiences. Everybody was
Yeah.
awesome.
I have to reiterate, if anybody's listening, they haven't been to Ireland, just going into like a pub alone, any pub, it's just a different experience than in the States. There, I mean, you
Oh
said
yeah.
picturesque, and it is picturesque. It's like you're going into bars and things that are like older than this country, basically, like it's really
Oh,
amazing. Like,
something else very exciting, is that we got to play at Matt Malloy's bar in Westport.
mhm.
We were a part of like the secret gig for the festival, and so Matt Malloy was in the Chieftains, and so that was really cool. He was actually there,
Oh yeah.
which yes, so I passed him and he said, "Good job." We did not, yeah, I just said thank you. But it was really cool to see him in his pub. And so we played there. That was really amazing. From Ardara, we went to Claudy and we played at the only cowboy bar in Ireland called the Rusty Spur.
Okay.
And Yuri had put us in contact with Max Connolly, who was amazing. Thank you all so much for having us. And so that was super cool as far as like, that felt like so much like home as far as there's a lot of horseback riding
Hmm.
trails around here and folks who are into being outside and being with the horses. So we had a really good time that night. By the end of the night, like everybody passed the guitar around and like folks from there were sharing some of their songs. We were sharing some of our songs. So it was a really special night.
Yeah.
And then from Claudie, we went to Northern Ireland, to the Red Room in Cookstown, and had some amazing hosts there at the Red Room. So thank you all so much for having us. And really good crowd. That was a special place. I remember just kind of walking up down the road and really counting my blessings that day. It had been a rainy day that day, so
It's
felt like
Ireland, so.
yeah, yeah. Felt like a good reflective day. And then from there we went to Malarkey's at the Foyles Hotel, which is where we finished up in Clifton, and rocked the place 2 nights in a row. Packed bar. Super fun way to end things and wrap things up. So, in more or less words, we had a good time.
Do you think you'll go back?
Oh yeah, I really hope to go
What
back
was that your
as soon
first
as possible.
time? Was that your first
Yes.
time in Ireland? Okay. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
magical, isn't it? I was there
Oh, I loved it.
Christmas of 2014, and it was like it was very picturesque, like European Christmas sort of thing.
Yes.
That's awesome. So I'm gonna move on down my list here, Jamie. We got about we're getting closer on time, but I want to talk to you. We mentioned like bluegrass music coming back. I was talking to JP Mathis and Leona the other day, and I want to ask you a question that I asked
Yay.
them. Um, for me, I feel like very much in my 30s, like this music, it's coming back into the mainstream or it's coming into the mainstream, but it's kind of reminding me of why I started playing and sort of why I put it into my eardrums every morning and listen to the bluegrass or the country music. What do you think? Why do you think internally that you are drawn to this music? It could be your childhood, but like there's tons of other music. So what makes you get up every morning and want to play and perform and teach and spread
Oh,
this
yes.
music around?
Oh, yes, great question. I feel very motivated to see other people enjoying the music. And I know that this music really, really brings a lot of joy and a lot of healing when it brings people together. Promoting peace, passing it down to the next generation. Music's the one thing that I think that really can take you away to a beautiful place in your mind for a while, and a healthy way to escape, from daily life, which all of
Mhm.
us have to do sometimes. So yeah, for me, my big motivation, I love my students. They're so fun. Work with junior Appalachian
Mhm.
musicians, and that's an after school program. So
Yeah.
love passing the music on. And yeah, I mean, I know for me, whenever I play or I write or I create, I think about my family. I
Yeah.
lost my grandmother last June, and she was a lady that really loved to have fun, and she loved music.
Yeah.
And, my dad, her son, he was the same way. And so I feel like whenever I play or I perform, my dad's been passed for some time now, and he was the same way, he really loved life. And so I feel like whenever I play, part of them is out there and doing that too.
That's
And so
beautiful.
that brings me a lot of joy.
That's great, Jamie. You mentioned the junior Appalachian musicians. I just want to make sure everybody at home knows for what I do here on this channel, which is to spread bluegrass to a wider audience. At the end of this year, at least 2024, I'm taking 5% of everything that I make profit-wise on my shows, on this channel, tip jar, t-shirt sales, and I'm giving it to that organization. I didn't know if you knew
Oh,
that.
yay!
I'm
Thank
calling.
you.
I'm
Awesome.
calling this my Dolly Parton pledge. Zach Mongan teaches down here. I've substituted taught a couple
Okay.
times.
Yeah.
But one last question before we let go, Jamie. And this has been a great conversation. Tell the listeners at home one or two albums, artists, songs, even that you need to listen to if you're getting into the genre.
Okay. Whew.
Where to start, right?
I know that's a gosh. Okay, so I would say JD Crowe and the New South
Hmm.
and Newgrass Revival.
Okay, so those two, go and listen to those.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
if
I mean, and there's so many other artists, but I feel like those were two very influential bands, from a certain time that had a lot of influence on me personally.
yeah. Well, Jamie, I really appreciate it. I'm gonna put all your information down in the description. Yeah, and hopefully maybe we'll get to see some of the Ireland pictures as well. Maybe you can throw
Yes,
those to me and I can put them in the podcast somewhere. But
sounds
yeah,
great.
I appreciate it, and hopefully I'll make it up that way soon. I was up that way not just the other day. I went up to record with JP and Leona, but yeah, this has been fun. Let's do it again, and let's get
Yay!
let's get Blake on here as well. You need to mention it to him.
That sounds
I'll send him a
good.
message.
Could make mention really quick that Blake and I've been getting to play a lot more music together. We are in a newly formed group called Bristol Lightning with
Awesome.
the amazing Dave Edgar and Phil Faconti, and we'll have some music coming out on June 28th.
June 28th. All right, so I'll put all this in the description. Jamie, really appreciate you hopping on here, and
Yeah,
yeah, keep playing, keep picking, keep doing what you do.
awesome, Cody. Let's jam soon.
Let's do it. All right, we'll
All
see you.
right, see you later. Bye
Bye
bye.
bye.